Alright guys, so let's talk about JavaScript events. Now, from definition I have here, events are actions or occurrences that happens in the system you are programming, which the system tells you about, so you can respond to them in some way, if desired. For example, if the user selects a button on the web page, you might want to respond to that action by displaying an information box and so on. Now, that should give you an insight about what an event is. If I click on the browser, or I move my mouse over any element on the browser, an event is occurring. As I'm hovering the cursor now, an event is occurring. And if I should move the cursor over this place, you see that it's going to display something. It's displaying something. That's a mouse over event. And if I move over here too, and if I should click on that, it will ask me that do I want to save the page as bookmark the page. And if I click on this button here, it's going to reload the page. So that is an event. An event occurred when I click on the button. So the event was listening to, and something was executed after the event occurred. So that's an event. Now let's do some stuffs. Okay, so scripts src, we've not yet created it yet. Index.js. Okay, now let's create it. Index.js. All right, now let's save this. Now, an event, ways that you can define an event. Let's put a button here. Let's say button, and I'm going to give it an ID alert.btn. Okay, so this is the button. Let's go to the front end. So this is the button. Oh, I forgot. Click me to alert. Okay, all right, so this is it. So if I should click on it now, it's not doing anything. And now let's go to the JavaScript. Now, to create an event, let's first of all get the HTML element that I want to attach the event to. Now I want to attach the event to this element here with an ID of alert button. So whenever a user click on the alert button, so it's going to do something. Now I want to introduce you to another thing. That's the document.query selector. So the query selector uses CSS selector to select elements. So I'm selecting an element with an ID of alert button. Okay, so how do we attach event? So I'm attaching an onClick event to it. So I'm going to say alert button dot onClick. Alert button dot onClick. So I'm going to execute a function here. So I'm using arrow function. Okay, so I'm going to say alert. Hey bro, you clicked me. Okay, save, and let's check it out. Let's load the page and let's click on it. Okay, what happened? Now let's open up our console and let's just reload the page again. Okay, so it's like we are getting something, an error here. Let me just try to do this now. Okay. Now I want to debug this. I'm going to debug it to see what really happened. So I want to see what was returned as the alert button here. Okay, it returned the button, but it didn't attach the event. So why? So let's try to debug this again. Dot on click. Let's save it and let's load the page now. I want it to, yes, I can see it has alerted. Okay, now let me pull this down. So that's how to debug. Use console.log to debug also. So I should just chip that in and let's click it again. I can see, hey bro, you clicked me. Okay, it was because I spelled this incorrectly. Okay, now that's how to do events, and there are several ways to do events, and there are several things that you can do again, and I can decide to change the color of this of the text of this stuff here. I can decide to change it. So I'm going to say id or events into. So I'm going to copy it and come here, and I'm going to say var events into equal to document dot query selector. So I'm going to be selecting it with, because we are getting with an ID, and alert. Oops. Okay. e.t.c into dot on mouse over. So whenever the user moves the mouse over it, so I want to change the text. I want to change the text of the text. I want to change the color of the text. So I'm going to say, because we are going to be using this, I hope you now understand this function. Now we're going to be using this because this refers to this element that we are attaching an event to. So this dot style dot color, style dot color is equal to, it's okay, the editor may not give you an int, just continue with this dot style dot color. That's going, I want to change it to green. So save, and let me save this to save. So this is another event, so I'm going to save this too. So I can see I have moved my mouse over it. So let me attach another event. There's another way to attach events, that's e.t.c into dot add event listener. So what type of event that I want to add? I want to add mouse out. That is, the user has moved the mouse out of this event, out of the boundary of this event. So on mouse out. Then the next thing is function. You can either use anonymous function like this. This is an anonymous function, or you could declare a function const color black. Let me just call it color black. That's going to be arrow function. So change to color black. So it's going to, okay, I'm not using arrow function because I want to use this. So if you want to use this in the code, don't use arrow function, because this in arrow function refers to the window element. So this in any function, in any arrow function, refers to the window element. So don't use this. If you want to use this, use function. Declare the function like this. So I hope you get it. And if you don't understand, just put your question in the description of this tutorial. Okay, all right. Color black. So it's going to have access to this dot style dot color is equal to, I want to set it back to color black. Okay. So since we are attaching the function to the event listener, we are not going to put the two brackets in front of it, the opening and closing bracket. So let's just reload it and move our mouse over it and move our mouse out. I can see, move it over it, move it out, move it over it, move it out, move it over it, move it out. So that's an event. It means an event is occurring as I'm moving the mouse over it and moving it out. An event is occurring. So this that is here, don't be confused. Immediately you put a function here, it's going to automatically get access to this keyword. That is, it's going to automatically get access to this element here, so you can perform any operation to the element, maybe hide the element, change the text, change the color of the element, change things like that. So you can decide to do it, and you can put arrow function. You can even put the O function. You can put it here. So now let's see how we can remove events. Now let's say that after moving my mouse out of it, I want to remove the events. So I'm going to say this, because I'm talking to this, I'm referring to this event into this dot remove event listener. This dot remove event listener. So first of all, I want to indicate the event listener that I want to remove. I want to remove on mouse over. And what is the function? And with that, so I have to define this inside a function. If I want to do that, I have to define it inside a function. Mouse events. So I'm going to define it inside a function. So I'm going to set this to this. On mouse over. So I'm going to remove the events. So whenever I mouse over, it will not do anything again. So that's how to remove events. So let's just mouse over, mouse out. So let me try to mouse over again. Okay, it's like we are getting an error. Oh, okay, mouse over. It's not on mouse over, it's mouse over. Okay, now let's reload it again, and let's try to move our mouse over it, move it out, move it. Okay, now let us do another stuff. Event into mouse over, and let's reload it, move it over, move it out, move it over. Okay, so there's another thing we can do. Let's try to define this as a normal function. Let's define it as a normal function. Save it, and let's check it out. Move it over, move it out, move it over. Okay, and okay, yeah, there is one stuff that we omit. let's just put this back, and you can only remove events that you added with add event listener. So instead of using the on mouse over, I'm just going to comment this out and use add event listener instead. So I'm just going to copy this here. I'll copy it and put it here, and event into mouse out, mouse over. Then I'm going to remove the mouse events. Okay, now save, and let's go back. Okay, move the mouse over it, move the mouse out, move the mouse over it again. As you can see, it has removed the event. It will not do anything again. Okay, so that's how to remove events. Now you can prevent an event from being occurred. So let me just go on and copy a form here. Okay, I'm just going to paste it here. Okay, so this is the form here, and let's go to the front end and check it out. Okay, let me save it and reload it again. Okay, so this is the form here. So let me write something here, and let me try to submit it. I can see it is going to reload the page. So the reason why it's coming back to the same page is because I set it to the same page. So how do we prevent? Now I want to prevent an event from being occurred, because the event that occurred now is to reload the page. Once the button is clicked, so it's going to reload the page. How do we prevent that event from being occurred? Now I'm going to prevent the event from being occurred, and I'm going to get the form. I'm going to give it an ID form, and just give it an ID form. Go back and var form, go to documents dot query selector. So I'm selecting with a CSS selector and form. Now we're going to listen to an event, the submit event. That's form dot on submit. That's equal to function. Let me just use this shorthand, function events. So this event variable here will automatically be gotten from this on submit event. So we can now do something like, okay, event dot prevent default. So it's going to prevent the default behavior. Now the default behavior of the form is that after clicking on submit button, that it should reload the page. Now we are going to prevent that default event from being occurred. Okay, now I've saved it, and let's reload the page again. Okay, so I'm just going to submit it now. I can see nothing is happening. So that's how to prevent events. So if you have any question about JavaScript events, just put it in the description of this tutorial.